Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few defense DST units I would start this week. The first one, the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Chiefs, their defense has been playing better over the last few weeks. Week 6 was a tough matchup where not many fantasy owners used them versus the Lions. They'll hold Detroit to 17 points and get a sack in that ball game. Obviously, overall, not bad defensively, but in terms of fantasy football, not much on the board. So the last few weeks, Week 4 versus Baltimore, 20 points allowed, 3 sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery. Week 5 at Jacksonville, 25 points allowed, 3 sacks, an interception, a fumble recovery. And then, like I said, Week 6 versus Detroit, 17 points allowed and a sack. So Week 7, a great matchup versus the Vegas Raiders. I give up the third most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. Geno Smith's been a turnover machine. Jacoby Myers hasn't done much. And Ashton Ginty so far in his rookie season at the running back position has been up and down. So another game in Arrowhead where their defense has been better at home than it's been on the road, especially this season. I think Kansas City goes out there and they have a good performance. Next start, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had the bye week. And then a great matchup versus the Cleveland Browns they had in Week 6 was this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Now 3 games in a row with double-digit fantasy points. Week 3 at New England, 14 points allowed, 5 sacks, an interception, 4 fumble recoveries. Week 4 versus Minnesota, 21 points allowed, 6 sacks, 2 INTs. And then Week 6 versus Cleveland, 9 points allowed, 6 sacks. So this week, a great matchup at Cincinnati. Give up the most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And we know with Joe Flacco in there, the offense has improved a little bit. I thought Flacco, he went out there versus a good Green Bay defense and had a decent ball game. Jamar Chase got his numbers, over 90 yards and found the end zone. But Pittsburgh, with this pass rush, I think they're going to get to Flacco early and often. We know they get a lot of sacks. We know they create turnovers. And when you got guys like TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay, and Hayward on this defense, they're going to cause havoc. So this week, with another great matchup at the Cincinnati Bengals, I like Pittsburgh. An easy start for fantasy owners this week. The next DST is the Philadelphia Eagles. I know last week, New York Giants went out Thursday Night Football and they had a big game versus Eagle defense. We really don't see the Philadelphia have 2 bad games in a row in terms of giving up a lot of points defensively. And this week, it's a good matchup at the Minnesota Vikings. Carson Wentz, one of their former quarterbacks, who obviously was great for them until he hurt that knee many years ago. And then Jalen Hurts came in, and the rest was history. So I think they're going to get pressure on Wentz early and often. I know they got a good running back in Jordan Mason, got Justin Jefferson, got TJ Hawkinson. But this Philadelphia Eagle team, after an embarrassing loss like that in Week 6, I think they bounce back and get back to the basics defensively. Week 5 versus Denver, 21 points allowed, 2 sacks. And then Week 6 in a matchup on paper, which looked good versus a lot of rookies on the Giants, 34 points allowed, 2 sacks. And Minnesota, like I said, 5th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. Carson Wentz, he's going to take his hits. He's going to turn the football over at times. And obviously, they know how to game plan for Carson Wentz, where he was with this organization for a little while, is Philadelphia. So this week, I think they bounce back after getting embarrassed and go out there and have a good defensive performance. Next starts the New England Patriots. In New England, they're playing great football. Week 5, a big victory versus the Buffalo Bills. And then Week 6, they went into New Orleans and took care of business. And Week 7 here, a great matchup at the Tennessee Titans. I give up the 2nd most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So the last few weeks for the Pats DST, Week 5 at Buffalo, 20 points allowed, a sack, an interception, 2 fumble recoveries. Week 6 in New Orleans, 19 points allowed, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery. And now a couple good matchups coming up. Tennessee in Week 7, 2nd most. And then Week 8 versus the Browns, they give up the 4th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. And even Week 9 versus Atlanta, the 10th most points to DSTs. So the next 3 weeks, arguably, this DST is usable. I know Week 6 they didn't play great, only 5 fantasy points in that one at the New Orleans Saints. But Mike Vrabel, the head coach of this Patriot team, he's a defensive-minded coach. And this offense, they're putting points on the board and making things easier for their defense. So they're giving up about 20 points per game of late is this New England DST, which I think is fine. And this Tennessee team, they're banged up with Calvin Ridley most likely not playing in this week's ball game as well. It's just going to be another plus for this Patriots DST. So they're definitely a start this week in the final DST. I would start as the Green Bay Packers. I thought Green Bay in Week 6 was going to have a better ball game, obviously, versus Cincinnati, with Joe Flacco in there, quarterback, not knowing the playbook, and just got traded there a few days ago prior to the game. But obviously that wasn't the case. And the last 2 weeks, this Green Bay DST hasn't played well. Week 4 at Dallas, 38 points allowed, a sack. Week 5, they had the bye. And then Week 6 18 points allowed in the sack versus Cincinnati, but week 7, a good matchup at Arizona. 9th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. I know Arizona put up a lot of points in Indianapolis with backup quarterback Jacoby Brissett, and also as well Marvin Harrison was out majority of that game after he got concussed. And in the backfield, you're down to your 3rd and 4th running backs in Bam Knight and Michael Carter. But I think Green Bay, they get back to basics. Micah Parsons, he's ramping up, playing more snaps as the weeks go on. And this week at Arizona, indoor game, which helps as well, not dealing with the elements outdoors, could help this defense. And Jacoby Brissett, he's a quarterback. I know he's a veteran. I know he could go out there and make some plays we saw last week. But I think Green Bay, this type of defense, is going to make it a tough day for Brissett and this offense. And their start this week sets a few defense DST units I would start for week 7 of the fantasy football season.